All right, Manhattan Project 2.0. I want to show a quick review of the Manhattan Project history and emphasize how Oak Ridge went from 1,000 farm families to 75,000 residents and 80,000 workers in just 2 years and 9 months. Y12, X10, K25, and S50. Y12 is the electromagnetic separation plant shown in the first picture here. You're looking at the main buildings. In the lower right is Beta 4, and then the next one is Alpha 5, 9201-5. Beta 4 is 92, and Beta 4, and then Alpha 4, Beta 2, Beta 3. Beta 3 is going to be the one that's preserved for the Manhattan Project National Historical Park. And then beyond that, you've got Beta 1, and then Alpha 1, 2, and 3. Those are the 9 large buildings. Alpha 2 is actually being demolished as we speak. And Alpha 5 and Alpha 4 will probably be demolished as soon as the protected area is reduced and they can be demolished outside of the protected area. But Beta 3 is going to be preserved. Anyway, that's the electromagnetic separation plant. The K20X10 is down in the lower left, and it was the graphite reactor at the time that it was constructed during the Manhattan Project. It's the Oak Ridge National Laboratory today. And then K25 is, of course, the gaseous diffusion plant. The building is a mile long in this U shape. The footprint is preserved. The building is gone. And there is an interpretive center that's being built that will allow you to see, actually, it's finished construction now, and will be opening in September of this year. Will allow you to see the overview of the footprint. It's very near the K25 Atomic History Center. Great museum, the last museum, well, next to last museum in Oak Ridge. I can't go by without saying that the Museum of ORAU, Oak Ridge Associated University's Museum of Radiation and Radioactivity, has been moved into the building where the Pollard Auditorium is. And it's now available for the public to see. You do have to call and get them to open the door to let you in, but it is available for the public to see now. And then the last one is S50, which was the thermal diffusion plant. Now, think about this. All of this, plus the city, was built in 2 years and 9 months. Now they're asking for a Manhattan Project 2.0. And two of the key individuals for the first Manhattan Project was General Groves and Colonel Nichols. Now, not enough has been said about these two people. General Groves, his grandson, Dick Groves, is busy creating a 13-episode television series on the history of General Groves and the Manhattan Project. A lot of it will be about what he knows and has researched about General Groves. Now, Colonel Nichols, second in command, actually ran the Manhattan Project from right here in Oak Ridge, the day-to-day activities. He even had responsibility for Los Alamos for the Army's portion there. Of course, Robert Oppenheimer had the scientists. And he had responsibility for Hanford as well. Now, his grandniece is writing a series of articles about Colonel Nichols, and we've been publishing them in Historically Speaking. And Barbara Scotland is her name, and she is going to compose those articles into a book, and we'll publish that book as soon as we've finished running all of them in the newspaper. They're running now, and will probably conclude sometime in June when we finish up the series. But again, not enough has been said about Colonel Nichols and his management of the Manhattan Project day-to-day activities from right here in Oak Ridge. Here's an interesting story about General Groves and how he managed. He said, this is S-50 thermal diffusion plant. Oppenheimer had learned that the Navy was experimenting with thermal diffusion. And he told General Groves, look, we are having trouble at Y-12. It's so slow getting this uranium-235. If we had a process that would help us on the front end, getting the material from 0.7% U-235 up to 1, 2, and 3% U-235 is the most difficult part of the separation. As you get closer to the higher enrichment levels, it becomes easier. So he said if we had this thermal diffusion, it would help us on the front end. So Groves went to the contractor and said, I need a thermal diffusion plant and I need it in 90 days. The contractor said, that can't be done. And Groves said, you've got 80 days. They actually built it in 76 days and operated it for about 3 months. And it's calculated that by doing this, they literally shortened the war by about 3 weeks. A typical example of how Groves got things done quickly. I might add another example to Groves. When he was first appointed, he needed a credit rating of 3, a AAA credit rating. So he went into the man that could approve that, and he brought a letter for him to sign, already written, typical of Groves. He brought it in, laid it on the man's desk, and said, I need a AAA credit rating. I need you to sign this. The man said, I don't believe I can sign that. Groves reached over, picked up the letter, started walking to the door, and sort of turned over his shoulder and said, well, I'll tell the president you wouldn't sign it. And the man said, oh, wait a minute, maybe I can sign it. So he got his AAA credit rating. Now notice this is the X-10 graphite reactor, the first industrial size nuclear reactor. There's a picture of it here being constructed. Now I want you to notice in this next slide, I found this other picture of it under construction. Again, it's obviously just being started, it looks like, but look at the date. The date is 7/14 of 1943. That's July the 14th. This is how far along they were. They had started in February breaking ground for the site. And by July the 14th, this is where it stood. But by November the 4th, they were actually, 43, they were actually running it, and it reached criticality about 5 o'clock in the morning on November the 4th. This is a picture of the exterior of the graphite reactor built in 9 months. Now keep that in mind when we think about Manhattan Project 2.0. How fast can we make something like that happen? And the reason for the Manhattan Project 2.0 is the Secretary of Energy has, Chris Wright, has challenged Oak Ridge to come up with a Manhattan Project 2.0 effort to provide electricity to artificial intelligence data centers and other nuclear needs that are going to be apparent in the coming years, in the not too distant future, I might add. So how did they do that? They recruited, this is the Manhattan Project now, they recruited people from all across the nation. They went into schools, they used newspapers, they even recruited draftees. Jack Case was up in Illinois, and he was being drafted. He and his brother were being drafted at the same time into the Army. and they approached him at the draft office and said, look, you've got a background in tool and die making, and we're going to need that in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. Now, you can either go there as a member of the Special Engineer Detachment in the Army, or you can go there as a civilian, but you're going to need to go there. And of course, Jack Case said, well, I'll go as a civilian. And he did. He came to Oak Ridge and hired in, worked in a machine shop, actually supervised a machine shop, and ultimately became the manager of the Y-12 plant. Interesting thing about Jack Case is that he was sent to Los Alamos in 1948 after the war ended now. They knew that the Cold War was beginning, and they wanted to build some additional atomic bombs. But the people out at Los Alamos, those scientists, they weren't very interested in becoming a production plant. They wanted to get back to their scientific activity. So they sent the Atomic Energy Commission director sent Jack Case out to Los Alamos to learn how to transfer that uranium powder that was being sent out there from Y-12 into metal. So he went out there and actually learned that technology and brought it back to Y-12. That has been Y-12's primary mission ever since. The nation's center of excellence for uranium is the Y-12 National Security Complex. Jack also would attend meetings with other laboratories in the DOE complex, and he would say to them, what is it you all in your laboratories want to do, but you don't have the ability to do it? Let Y-12 do it. We can do it for you. And interestingly enough, that's where the motto at Y-12, the can-do attitude, came from, is from Jack telling these laboratory people, whatever you want done, we can do it. The story is told that one time one of the lab directors said, Jack, I bet if we told you to build us a brass outhouse, you could do it. The next time they had a meeting, Jack brought him a little brass outhouse that they'd been welded up at Y-12. And not only was it a unique form of brass, but it was that most people thought could not be welded, but it was welded at Y-12. So that's the kind of approach that's going to have to be taken for this Manhattan Project 2.0. Going to have to recruit from all across the nation, everywhere that we've got technology, qualified people. They need to be given the opportunity to be a part of the Manhattan Project 2.0. Special facilities were required because they had to handle unique safety hazard, never been seen before. This is the processing area to handle plutonium at the Oak Ridge National Laboratory and other materials that are needed that have radioactivity associated with them. Housing was quickly built, from trailers to 4-bedroom homes, from dormitories to hutments. These are the hutments that were built, just plywood shacks, 16 by 16 feet, with beds along the walls and a heater in the middle. And then, of course, there were the flat tops, other small buildings that were used for homes. And then this one down in the lower left is actually Colonel Nichols' home. It's a type D. Notice the break in the roof is the way I identify the alphabet houses, the D houses. And his is up on at 111 Olney Lane, affectionately known as Snob Knob, because many of the leaders of the project actually lived up on Olney Lane. And this one's Happy Valley. It was built out by the K-25 construction site, housed 15,000 people, had dormitories, had stores, had a movie theater, had a recreation hall. It was a city of 15,000 people. Well, why not do that again if we need to build another location for people to live in Oak Ridge? The Happy Valley area was once a thriving community. It could well be again. A city of 75,000 residents in 2 years and 9 months. This is looking at Jackson Square, looking to the north and northeast. You can see the high school there. And just off the picture, not being able to see there, is the Chapel on the Hill. That's the parking lot for the Chapel on the Hill. And the guest house is down here. And this is the Jackson Square area and all of those dormitories that were there during that time. When Bill Wilcox came in here, him and his friend were looking at these dormitories, and they saw large M's on the doors of some of them and large W's on the others. So being pretty smart chemists, they figured out that must stand for men's and women. So they counted them, and there were 5 dormitories for men and 10 dormitories for women. They thought that was pretty good odds. So Manhattan Project 2.0, what will it take to replicate the astonishing achievement of the Manhattan Project? 600,000 people worked on that first Manhattan Project at one time or the other. Had a lot of turnover, obviously, but that involved that many people ultimately. Germany and Japan were both working on atomic bombs. We know Texas and others are seeking to become the center of the current nuclear renaissance. So we're in a race with others that would want to do it. And I happen to think we're talking about the artificial intelligence data centers and how much electricity they're going to require. Well, AI is already there. Let's see what it could do to help us now. So I asked ChatGPT, what would it take to make a Manhattan Project 2.0 to provide electricity for artificial intelligence data centers? ChatGPT's answer was funny, I thought. That's a wild and fascinating idea. Manhattan Project 2.0 for AI infrastructure, a moonshot to solve the energy demands of AI with the urgency and scale of a World War II style national mobilization. Here's what it would take to pull something like that off. Number one, a clear strategic goal. The original Manhattan Project goal, gild an atomic bomb before the Nazi Germany. Now, we need to build a Manhattan Project 2.0. We need to build the nuclear centers before anyone else can do that. The goal would be to build an infrastructure capable of powering AI growth for the next century, carbon-free, reliable, and scalable. This could focus on small modular reactors, fusion energy, AI-optimized nuclear power plants. Now, that's artificial intelligence talking to us. They created a milestone for the years. What would it take? 2025, a task force needs to be launched. The ORNL, Oak Ridge National Laboratory Base headquarters established. By the way, there's already an RFP out for that, and there's a location out at the Oak Ridge National Laboratory that's already been identified. 2026, the first small modular reactor construction begins. Artificial Intelligence Energy Laboratory open. 2027, AI-powered data center plus small modular reactor demo unit online. We're already on track for that with Kairos Power building the first small modular reactor demo under construction right now. 2028, grid integration pilot begins, and by 2030, Oak Ridge becomes the national center for clean artificial intelligence energy export. Now, I said, okay, how well suited is Oak Ridge, Tennessee to be the center of a Manhattan Project 2.0? ChatGPT responded, Oak Ridge is extremely well suited to serve as the epicenter of the Manhattan Project 2.0, especially one focused on nuclear energy infrastructure for artificial intelligence and high-performance computing. Reasons being historical legacy and institutional infrastructure. It's one of the original Manhattan Project sites, home of the Oak Ridge National Laboratory, one of the most advanced nuclear research and development centers in the world. Number two, nuclear ready culture and regulatory support. DOE, Department of Energy, the NRC, Regulatory Commission, the population supportive, secure zones already there. Think about population supportive. Where else in the nation would you find a city and a community, an area that rejected a racetrack, all right, rejected putting a target here several years ago, but are open to building nuclear reactors here? That's unique in the country. You won't find it anywhere else to the extent you find it in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. Workforce and education pipeline, University of Tennessee, Roane State, Mississippi State. The grid and geography, available land, water, TVA, Tennessee Valley Authority, non-earthquake zone. And number five, economic incentives and political will, energy innovation and advanced manufacturing, high-tech jobs. So ChatGPT thinks Oak Ridge is well suited. We actually check every box for Manhattan Project 2.0. The nuclear expertise is here, high performance computing is here. They have the federal facilities already. A willing population. I think that may be one of the most significant aspects of Oak Ridge's readiness for Manhattan Project 2.0 and a legacy of innovation under government direction. Of course, we have that here as well. So what would Alvin Weinberg say today? These guys had a pretty good idea. Let's go back to it. Now, of course, he was talking about the molten salt reactor when he said that. But I believe if he were here today, he would say that Manhattan Project 2.0 is an idea that's right for Oak Ridge. And I believe he would encourage us to continue along that path.